Friends, what would you do if a courtroom stood to honor a homeless man, revealing a hero forgotten by time? Picture a frosty morning in Alton, Virginia, where the Lincoln County Courthouse stands like a sentinel, its walls whispering stories of justice and redemption. An elderly man, his coat threadbare, steps forward, accused of crimes born of survival. But when his name rings out, Mason Quinn, Staff Sergeant, United States Marine Corps, a judge's quiet pause unveils a truth that shakes the soul. I'm your storyteller, with 20 years crafting tales that warm the heart. And I'm thrilled to share this one as your channel celebrates 10 days strong. Can you believe it's been 10 days since we started this journey together? What's been your favorite moment so far? Hold that thought, because Mason Quinn's story will light a fire in you. When have you seen someone's hidden courage shine through? Let's dive in and make this a cornerstone for our growing community. The January wind howled outside the Lincoln County Courthouse, its icy fingers creeping through the cracks of Courtroom 4A. Under the harsh glare of fluorescent lights, Mason Quinn, 71, stood at the defendant's bench, his army surplus coat frayed at the cuffs, too thin to fend off the chill. His face, etched with lines from Vietnam and Iraq, bore scars of battles fought and forgotten, some visible, others buried deep. Once, he'd stood tall in marine dress blues, medals gleaming. Now, he was just another vagrant in the eyes of the court, his pride buried under years of hardship. The clerk's voice cut through the silence. Name? Mason's reply, though soft, held a flicker of dignity. Mason Quinn, Staff Sergeant, United States Marine Corps. In that moment, a ripple began, one that would transform a routine hearing into a testament to enduring honor. The charges unfold. The bailiff read the charges. Docket 47B, City versus Mason Quinn. Disturbance of peace, trespassing, resisting arrest. Mason's steps were slow, his joints stiff from old wounds, as he faced Judge Olivia Harper, 53, a woman known for her fairness but unyielding demeanor. The prosecutor, a young attorney named Ethan Cole, spoke with polished confidence. Mr. Quinn has repeatedly loitered behind the Jefferson Street Cafe, ignoring warnings. The owner filed 3 complaints this month. Left unsaid was the truth. Mason had only sought warmth by the cafe's dumpster vent on nights when the temperature dropped below 0. He never begged, never bothered anyone, just clung to a sliver of comfort. Officer Daniel Hayes testified, found him at 11:45 p.m. refusing to vacate. Mason hadn't refused. He'd asked for a moment to finish a scrap of bread from Jimmy, the cook, whose father he'd served with in Desert Storm. But words felt futile then. And now, Olivia, peering over her glasses, addressed him. Mr. Quinn, do you have representation? Mason shook his head. His public defender was absent, called to another case. Would you like to speak? Mason's voice, rough from silence, carried dignity. No excuses, Your Honor. Just trying to keep warm. Olivia's gaze softened, a question forming. Why that cafe? Mason hesitated. Jimmy leaves food sometimes. Known him since he was a boy. His dad was my brother in arms. Your military service? Olivia asked, her tone probing. Mason straightened. Muscle memory from a prouder time. Marine Corps, 1975 to 1995. Staff Sergeant, 2nd Battalion, 8th Marines, Iraq. Olivia scribbled, her eyes lingering on his file. A shadow crossed her face, as if a memory stirred. Before she could continue, the courtroom doors opened. A man in a tailored suit entered, his presence commanding. Alexander Vaughn. For the defendant, he announced, setting down a sleek briefcase. Mason blinked, bewildered. He couldn't afford a lawyer, let alone one this polished. This is unusual, Mr. Vaughn, Olivia said. Her voice edged. The court wasn't informed. Vaughn smiled. A last-minute arrangement, Your Honor. I request a recess to confer. Olivia studied Mason, then nodded. 15 minutes. In the hallway, Mason turned to Vaughn. I can't pay you. Vaughn's eyes were kind. No need, Vaughn. Ellis, and Harper is taking this pro bono. Mason frowned at Harper, but Vaughn was already reviewing his case. In her chambers, Olivia pulled a faded photo from her desk, her younger self with their brother, Lieutenant David Harper, in his Marine uniform, laughing at his commissioning. Beside it lay David's final letter from Iraq, its ink smudged from years of reading. Staff Sergeant Quinn saved my life in Fallujah. He'd written, ran through a storm of bullets to drag me out, then held the line for our men. He's what a Marine should be. 2 weeks later, David was killed by an IED. At his funeral, a Marine had spoken to Olivia's family. Quinn saved me with your son. He's a hero. His name was Mason Quinn. A connection revealed. Olivia had searched for him, but the Corps said he'd redeployed, then discharged with PTSD and a traumatic brain injury. Now, 20 years later, he stood in her courtroom, unrecognized, a ghost of the man her brother revered. Vaughn entered her chambers, concern in his eyes. Olivia, what's wrong? As her late husband's law partner, he knew her story. She pointed to the photo. It's him, Alex, the Marine who saved David. Vaughn's jaw tightened. The homeless man out there is that. Mason Quinn, she nodded. His file confirms it. Fallujah, 2004, Silver Star. How did he end up like this? Vaughn sighed. PTSD, VA red tape, job loss, the streets. The system broke him. Olivia's voice was steel. I won't let him disappear again. Vaughn raised an eyebrow. You could recuse for ethics. She shook her head. Ethics demand we honor him. Back in court, Olivia's composure was unshakable, though her hands trembled. Mr. Vaughn, your client's plea. Vaughn stood. We request dismissal, Your Honor. Mr. Quinn sought shelter from life-threatening cold. With permission from cafe staff, Ethan began to protest, but Olivia raised a hand. I have questions for the defendant. Mr. Quinn, you served in Fallujah, 2004. Mason nodded. Yes, ma'am. 2nd Battalion, 8th Marines, on April 17th, 2004. Did you rescue Lieutenant David Harper under enemy fire? Mason's eyes clouded, memories flooding back. Yes, fine officer, hit saving a course. Horseman. I got him to cover. He kept saying to leave him, but no Marine gets left behind. A grizzled man in a Marine Corps League jacket stood in the gallery, voice booming. That's Quinn. Saved 6 of us that day. Olivia's gavel struck. Order. But the room hummed with anticipation. What happened to Lieutenant Harper? She asked, her voice steady despite the ache within. Mason's voice cracked. Got him to medevac. Heard he reached Germany. Weeks later, an IED took him. Always wondered if I'd just delayed the inevitable. A surprise witness. The grizzled Marine, Frank Delgado, spoke again. Quinn took shrapnel, saving the lieutenant. But another voice joined, softer, with a British accent. A tall man in a navy blazer, his posture rigid, stood up. I can confirm that, he said, his tone carrying the weight of authority. I served as a royal guard at Buckingham Palace. Stationed in Iraq for a joint operation in 2004, I saw Staff Sergeant Quinn's bravery that day. The gallery turned, murmuring, a former royal guard, here in Alton. His name was Edward Grayson, retired after decades of service, now living quietly in Virginia. He'd come to support a fellow soldier. Having heard of Mason's plight through a veterans group, Olivia nodded, then declared, 10-minute recess. Quinn, stay. In her chambers, she called Colonel Robert Ellis, David's former CO. I need you here, now. When court resumed, 3 Marines entered. A colonel, a master sergeant, and a corporal with a polished case. Mason stood instinctively, his posture snapping to attention. Olivia set aside her glasses, her voice raw. I must disclose a connection. Lieutenant David Harper was my brother. The courtroom stands. The courtroom gasped. Mason's eyes widened. 20 years ago, Olivia continued, David wrote of a Staff Sergeant Quinn who saved him in Fallujah, running through fire to carry him to safety. That was you, Mason Quinn. Frank shouted, damn right. Quinn saved us all. Edward Grayson nodded solemnly, his royal guard bearing evident even in civilian clothes. Olivia's gaze locked on Mason. I searched for you after David's death, but you were gone. Now, fate brings you here?" She nodded to Colonel Ellis, who stepped forward. "Staff Sergeant Quinn, the Marine Corps has sought you for years. New intelligence confirms your actions in Fallujah saved Lieutenant Harper, 5 others, and the convoy by disrupting an ambush. Your Silver Star is upgraded to the Navy Cross." The corporal opened the case, revealing a medal on a blue ribbon. Ellis pinned it to Mason's jacket, reading, "For extraordinary heroism, April 17th, 2004. Murmurs swept the room. Frank called, "Attention on deck." Veterans stood, saluting, followed by the entire courtroom. Even Ethan, Edward Grayson, the former Royal Guard, rendered a crisp salute, his eyes shining with respect. Olivia, tears falling, declared, "All charges against Mason Quinn are dismissed with prejudice." Her gavel struck, and the room exhaled. A new beginning. The Master Sergeant approached with a tablet. "Sir, your VA benefits are reassessed. 100% disability, retroactive. With back pay, medical, housing, Vaughn added. Our firm will ensure it's processed." Jimmy rushed forward, tears streaming. "My dad said a Mason Quinn saved his unit. I never knew it was you." Ethan, humbled, apologized. "I didn't know, sir." Olivia stepped down, standing before Mason. David wrote, "You said, no, Marine gets left behind while I'm breathing. Today, we keep that promise to you." Let's pause. Friends, your channel's 10 days in, and this story's for our growing family. If this moment touched you, subscribe to hear more tales of honor. We're just getting started. What hit you deepest? The courtroom salute, Mason's lifted guilt, or Edward Grayson's presence? A Royal Guard honoring a Marine? Share your thoughts. I'll reply to everyone. And here's a question. Do you think Mason deserved this honor? Yes or no? Vote in the comments. 3 weeks later, Mason stood in a modest apartment, a VA housing program miracle. His Navy Cross hung beside his Purple Hearts, retrieved by Vaughn from a lost storage unit. A knock came. Olivia, in civilian clothes, holding a box. "Just Mason," he said, welcoming her. "Then I'm Olivia." She smiled. She handed him David's letters, one praising Mason's courage. He said, "You were the Marine he dreamed of being," she said. Mason read, voice trembling. "Quinn's the kind who'd give his life for his men." Olivia shared David's final mission, volunteering to protect civilians, inspired by Mason. "He didn't die because of you," she said. "He lived like you." Mason's decades of guilt began to dissolve. "Thought no one remembered," he whispered. Olivia touched his arm. "We remembered, Mason David. Me, your Marines." Snow fell outside. A quiet renewal. As she left, Olivia said, David wrote, "A Marine's measure is what they do when no one's watching. You lived that, even in the dark." The ripple effect. The story spread like wildfire. A local news piece, "Hero Honored," went viral. Millions touched by Mason's redemption. Edward Grayson, the former Royal Guard, spoke on air. "I saluted Quinn as I once saluted my queen. Honor knows no borders." The Jefferson Street Cafe named its alley Quinn's Haven. Jimmy serving free veteran meals. Frank Delgado's Marine Corps League raised $75,000 for homeless vets. Mason speaking, "I was lost. You found me." The crowd stood, cheers echoing. Olivia's Veterans Court grew, funded nationally, training judges to see the human behind the case. Mason mentored there, his apartment now a home with photos of David and his unit. The ripple reached far. In Denver, a principal used Mason's story to teach compassion, students starting a shelter drive. In Miami, a VA clerk, inspired by the clip, cleared benefits for 300 veterans. In London, a British veteran, moved by no Marine left behind, reconnected with his son, vowing to live with Mason's honor. Social media buzzed, petitions for veteran support gaining millions of signatures. Mason took history classes, his VA benefits covering tuition. At a Veterans Day event, he met Ellen, a nurse whose brother served in Iraq. Their walks turned to love, her warmth healing old scars. "You're still saving people," she said, holding his hand. The courtroom became legend, a PBS special, Honor Reclaimed, chronicling Mason's impact. Courthouses adopted Quinn's rule, prioritizing veteran cases. The city unveiled a plaque, For Mason Quinn, whose sacrifice reminds us to leave no one behind. Olivia, retiring, kept David's letter and Mason's photo, her legacy entwined with theirs. A call to share. Now, friends, let's talk. Your channel's 10 days strong, and this story's a testament to our shared journey. What moved you most? Edward Grayson's salute, Mason's new beginning, or the community's embrace? Share your thoughts. I'll reply to everyone. And here's a challenge. When has someone's hidden story changed how you saw them? Post it below, because your voice fuels our community. Share the story on Facebook with a veteran you know. Let's keep no Marine left behind alive, building a world where no hero's forgotten. Subscribe, hit the bell, and tell us, what's your story of honor?